All right, Chaz, let's get right to it. It's not like the Diamondbacks don't have issues. I mean, they got the whole Ketel Marte saga. They had to throw Zach Littell at the Reds and then DFA'd him the next day. And yet the Reds had one feel-good game in the desert on Saturday. And for the second time in 4 days, they had to travel after not just a series loss, but a difficult-to-swallow finish on getaway day. We'll do the good stuff on this show. We always do. But with how things played out at Chase Field on Sunday, Chaz, I'd simply like to say I'd like your thoughts, and you have the floor, sir.
One of the more interesting decisions Tito has made all season in pulling Andrew Abbott in the 7th with the bases loaded for Luis May. And obviously it didn't work because May kind of imploded and the Reds gave up the lead and that was the game. But still a fun argument to have. I'll ask you this. I'm going to lay out the information for you, Brian, and I'm curious if you take the result out of it, which way you would lean. So Abbott gives up kind of a whatever single, then a true flare, and then in kind of just a weird situation, showing bunt, 4-pitch walk. I think Abbott kind of got a little too cute there, but it's not like he was losing his command. It was just an off situation. So that sets the floor, or sets the table. You've got Waldschmidt set due up for the Diamondbacks. He crushes lefties, 862 OPS versus lefties, but he's a very inexperienced player, or much less established player than the guy you knew Arizona would pitch it for him. That would be Lars Nootbaar. Still, if you're playing the platoon situation, platoon numbers, Waldschmidt better versus lefties than Nootbaar versus righties. Next up, you've got Vargas, much better versus lefties than righties. 876 OPS versus 610 OPS. Much less RBI production as well versus righties than lefties. I think I said that right. He's much better against lefties. And then Carroll, who is left-handed but had been doing very well versus Abbott. So those are a lot of the cases, statistically, platoon-wise, to put Luis May into that game. Knowing Tito, though, he's not a cut and dry, dead fast, set it, seal it, deliver platoon style manager. That's not necessarily how he goes about making these decisions. Projecting here, and we haven't heard from Tito yet, with the bases loaded, and the fact that Luis May had struck out multiple batters in each of his last 7 appearances, I bet that was on the mind. That was a reason in May's favor. The platoon, the strikeouts led to the decision I would expect. But the flip side of that is the fact that Abbott's one of your best guys. May's still relatively inexperienced. As good as May's been, he hasn't shown yet that he can be good against inherited runners in dirty, messy innings and tough situations. And Abbott's cruising. Even though he had loaded the bases, Abbott was pitching his rear end off. He was spinning the ball incredibly well. I thought the fastball took a step forward today. I've laid out all the information. If you take the result out of it, Brian, did one point on either side of the fence I make sound more compelling to you than another?
The only point that came to my mind is we've lauded Luis May for how he's looked recently in his return. I think his previous start was a high leverage. His previous appearance was a high leverage situation, which he met the challenge. And I think at that point you want to believe that that's your best option. But I went back when we were talking about this, or when this was in the rundown, and I thought, okay, I agreed with you that Abbott was very much in control of the game. He started the 7th inning at about 80 pitches. So that's not necessarily an issue in terms of the pitch count, or certainly any fatigue that would have arisen. It was 75 degrees and comfortable, as opposed to the start he made in St. Louis when it was 110 degrees on the field. I can see the argument both ways. What I'm curious about, with us recording now, having not yet heard from Tito or Andrew Abbott, did you see, if you watched the broadcast, did you see the smile that Andrew Abbott had when he walked to the back of the mound after the walk to load the bases with nobody out? I want to know what Andrew Abbott was thinking. when he walked to the back of the mound. I want to know what Andrew Abbott was thinking when he got back to the dugout and things unraveled. And he appeared to be as frustrated with the entire situation as Andrew Abbott shows, because he doesn't show a ton of that. So I could see it both ways with the information you laid out. I'm most curious what the known commodity in Andrew Abbott was thinking about the situation, as well as what Terry Francona was thinking, because I think most of us thought, here's another chance for Luis May. Cowboy pointed it out on the broadcast. Here's a chance for Luis May. This is a situation that he hasn't seen or hasn't had that opportunity much. As it turned out, I thought he was okay after the first run scored. He got a little dribbler on the infield.
Yeah.
After that, it changed. But that's baseball, and it's also this Reds team being tough to figure out.
What I fall back on is usually I'm a pretty analytical guy, etc. I kind of just like in this specific case leaning with the guy you trust more, the guy who looked great, as opposed to the unknown of really in 90% of the cases, the unknown that always exists when the bullpen door flings open of does the guy about to run out have his best stuff or his crispest stuff on that specific day. I go back to the fact that the 4-pitch walk, for my read on it, was Abbott getting cute, not Abbott losing his command. There's a stark difference there. It's it was the fact that he had just made a, let's call it like compared to defense. It's like he had just made a mental error. It's not like he was looking gassed out in the outfield because he had to run down a million fly balls. And then, we're very impressed with Luis May leading up to today specifically. But I think it also would have been a different situation if you had, let's call it 2025 Tony Santia. Or if it was 2021 TJ Antone coming out. And then, 2026 TJ Antone's been great, but he's been pitching just more as a designated clean 8th inning type of guy. If it was someone who had gotten very set and established in entering a bases loaded, 2 runners in scoring position type situation, that's something that's easier to point to on the back of a baseball card when you kind of explain it afterwards to an all-star pitcher than someone in Luis May who, has he ever pitched in that spot in a high leverage situation in the big leagues? Definitely not this year. I'd have to go back to last year. So I lean more towards almost philosophical in your soul belief in Antone and how he was looking, with an extra edge you give toward the fact of what I evaluate the 4-pitch walk as being explained by. And I'm going against the platoon numbers, and there's nothing wrong with going with the platoon. I love going with the platoon numbers typically. And I love how Luis May's been throwing the ball, and I completely understand that May's much more likely to throw to get you a strikeout with how he's been pitching recently. But while May got the job done and did his part against Nootbaar kind of hit a soft roller. The run scored, but again, Luis kind of did his job there. Vargas, who, as I mentioned earlier, hasn't been driving in runs against righties all season, crushed a triple, then sack fly Corbin Carroll. Then that's kind of the game. Didn't work out for the Reds, but still one of those we're having the argument here and explaining both sides because it is a fun push and pull. I bet the conversation was really interesting between Freddie and Knapp and Tito in the dugout, because I don't think there's one way to have done this.
I would ask you the same question, and you kind of laid it out, but what conversation are we having? This is the other side of it. If you choose to give Abbott, the veteran,
great point,
some leash, and we're looking at what have you done for me lately? Lately, Luis May, like you said, is probably good for a strikeout there. But that's what we do. That's what we do. You talk through these things, but the Reds right now, like I said, it's the second straight getaway day that they leave the ballpark, get on the bus, get on a plane, feeling like they let a game get away. And right now, do you feel like a single game is going to make or break the season for the Cincinnati Reds? No, you don't. But when you're looking for some things, when you could have had consecutive series wins at home against the Cardinals and in Arizona against the Diamondbacks, those things loom large, and they weigh heavily on a team now as they travel to the West Coast to see the Giants coming up next. Welcome to Power Stacks, Chaz. We are proud members of the Growler Podcast Network and proudly presented by Joseph Toyota of Cincinnati, where from opening day until the final out of the season, the team at Joseph Toyota brings its A game every single day. Whether you're shopping for a new Toyota, upgrading your current ride, or just looking for a dealership that delivers more than just a vehicle, Joseph Toyota is built to win. As the home of lifetime powertrain protection, the folks at Joseph Toyota help give their customers peace of mind long after they drive off the lot. And with the Joseph Toyota Advantage Rewards program, every service visit helps you earn rewards that you can use towards future maintenance, making ownership even that much more rewarding. So while the Reds are working their way through the dog days of summer, working their way towards the month of September, the team at Joseph Toyota is just getting it done every single day, delivering championship-level customer service, unbeatable value, and benefits that keep paying off inning after inning. Thanks for listening to Power Stacks, proudly brought to you by Joseph Toyota, where every customer gets the all-star treatment. Chaz, we kick things off at the series in Arizona. Right now, we do the leadoff spot on the show. And let's talk a little bit more about Andrew Abbott. After the start in Arizona, which I think we would both agree, I'm still really curious to see what he has to say, but certainly to that point, through 6 innings, 1 run, Andrew Abbott looked good. You like the fastball. Cowboy pointed out the changeup and the fact that it appeared early in the game. He had a good feel for the changeup and was having a lot of his success on that pitch. What about Abbott right now, who went from being last year's all-star, so good, to a surprise opening day starter this year? And then the season that he's had has had its highs and it's had some lows. But what's the rest of this season about for Andrew Abbott?
It's a conversation really I've had with Andrew since the first week of spring training, because you look at how his career has, the story of his career in each season. In 2023, he was unbelievable. Ran out of gas, got completely taxed down the stretch. 2024, pitched as well as Hunter Green through like July, truthfully, and Hunter made the All-Star team that year. Abbott then hurt his shoulder in August, missed the rest of the season. 2025 makes the All-Star team, goes through struggles in August and September. He did pick it up a bit with like a start here or there, but I've got the stats right here. He has a 5.27 ERA in August in his career, a 4.88 ERA in September. Last year, he posted a 4.45 ERA in August and a 3.95 ERA in September. So when you look at how good Abbott's been on the whole in most months, and then that trend in August and September, that's given him something to attack. What was weird this season was that he had this slow start based on adjustments he was making during spring training. His mechanics got out of whack. He, in some cases, without even realizing it, got away from the sync and the rhythm and the tempo that makes it all smooth, that makes it all click for him. The biomechanics team got involved. We've told this whole story. Figured it out, literally solved the problem with the numbers, came back, and he's been fine. Now, recently, he said like a start here, a start there. I blame like 150 degrees in St. Louis and then a torrential downpour at Great American Ballpark for any sort of struggles that Abbott has had in August. And I think he's been throwing the ball very well. And you'll hear him talk about the fact that he feels like he's spinning the ball as well as he ever has. The fastball hadn't quite been there. That's why I thought the fastball, the way he was able to use it today was really impressive. And then today, I mean, Brown was classic Abbott because he could use different pitches in different parts of the zone when he needed to. And that's a superpower. That's Abbott. And he feels to me as in a good spot as he's been as the calendar flips to September, as he's been in during his career.
Yeah, and I think this season, and I've had the same conversation you've had with him throughout the year, this season he learned how to work his way through that adversity you described. He said that he had never felt the way that he felt earlier in the season before at any level where he had pitched. He'd never struggled to solve the problems that he experienced early in the season this year. And so I think this season, the fact that he got through that he got back on track, that he is where he is, that's one of the takeaways already from this season. A couple of years ago, like you said, it was how can I be strong late in the year? And he addressed that and certainly has overcome that. But now going down the stretch, you still have some of those same things of how do you keep things steady if you're Andrew Abbott, because that's who he's been. I love watching him pitch. I love watching him work. I love watching him in the clubhouse. He's always had a calmness about him, a presence about him. He's not emotional. And you remove emotion from the equation to start to solve and work through issues and problems. And he's always been a master at that. So now he's going to end up with, I haven't done the math. How many does he have? 4 more starts, something like that? 5 maybe? He has a chance. He'll have a career high in starts. He could be pushing innings. And so it's a good way to evaluate where he is, that he's gone through what he's gone through, and he's probably still going to hit some of those numbers at the end of this season.
It's funny, like if he has a great September, his ERA won't be as good as it was last year. He won't finish in the top 10 of Cy Young voting like he did last season.
Yeah.
But if he posts like a 2.6 down the stretch, and maybe you can do some, you can flush out the math. You can kind of help massage the math maybe a bit, because like today, Abbott ends up getting charged for a bunch of runs, but those should be kind of taken off his ledger in a lot of ways, especially because May gave up most of them. And also it was a weird inning where he wasn't really giving up hard contact. So if Abbott has that type of finish, I'd feel even better about his 2026 season than I felt about his 2025.
The numbers are, he's 4 starts away from a career high in games started. If he averages, 5+ innings over his remaining starts, he'll have a career high in innings. Certainly, he may not have a career high in home runs allowed, but he's going to have more than he had a season ago. The biggest number is that he's already well into a career high, and he passed that a while back for walks. That's been part of the story of his struggles and where he is right now. All of last season in 29 starts, Andrew Abbott ended up with 43 walks, which is remarkable. He sits at 66 going into today. How many walks did he have this afternoon? He had 2 walks, so it's 68 already through his 27th start of the season. So just some of the things, but last year's All-Star campaign and the number of starts he made, and this year's number of starts and innings being roughly the same with mixed results, I think is a good thing for him to work with and compare and work towards moving forward.
So while I haven't talked to Abbott yet, immediately after today's game, I did make the trip to Arizona. I will be in San Francisco and Chicago going forward for the next week. I did talk to Abbott a few days ago, and a lot of the stuff carries over following today's start about how he's feeling, and really, most importantly, his mindset towards the stretch run of the season. Here's a part of my conversation with Andrew Abbott. What have you learned from previous years about what it takes for you specifically to be at your best in August and September?
Well, to be honest, I haven't been really good in my career. So, I mean, there's really only one direction to go in those months. But, you just have to keep throwing, right? You're not trying to change the wheel. You're not trying to reinvent anything. I'm just trying to focus on the basics, stay as simple as I can. And, that helps me on the mound, not think about too much stuff, like just have a simplified attack against these guys. And, I faced them 3 times now. Like they're not anything you're hiding. You're just kind of mixing up sequences. You're mixing up speeds. Like you're just trying to do your best with that kind of stuff. But the main thing that, you learn over the years is just like, how does your body feel? Like when you need a day, you need to take a day. Like, that kind of stuff. When you're young, you don't really want to do it. But now as you get older, you're like, okay, well, if I don't want to throw today after, like if I threw like Dolo yesterday, like I'm not going to throw today. Like I need a day to just kind of decompress. Like learning that part of yourself during these months is crucial. Like you don't want to be sore going start to start. This is when you really need to turn it on. Like you, as a starting pitcher, you really want to finish strong. You want to start strong and finish strong in an ideal perfect world. And I mean, that's been the message for all of us. But for me personally, it's just like keeping on the routine, involving the biomechanics to a certain extent, but also just not overcomplicating things because it's already hard enough.
Do you ask Brady questions about kind of keys to taking the ball every fifth day and stuff like that?
I mean, yeah, we had a lot of conversations about it, and I mean, it's kind of like what we talked about. It's been as simple as like, hey, like, some days you got it, some days you don't. Just be out there, take the ball, be present. I told Chase this, and I try to tell people that are younger, at least from what was told from me, from Luke Weaver and the guys that we had before us, that were just like, you have to flip the script. If you're dominating, you go out there and you don't even worry about anything. Like, you just go dominate. But if you're getting hit, you're getting up runs, like, you need to figure out a way to elongate the start. You need to figure out a way to get through 5. If you can sneak a 6 in, even if you're giving up runs, like, that's huge for not only you, because it helps you out in the long run, but it's going to help the bullpen, and it's not going to, be some hoopla. So that's kind of been the process me and Brady have talked when we have that conversation. It's just been noticing, like, mechanical flaws, and then building on that, going into like, okay, take the ball every 5 days. Routine's got to be bullet point. We got to stay on it. Like, there are days you show up, you don't want to do anything, but you still gotta do it.
Pitch wise, what do you feel like you've been doing best this summer? The way you've been spinning or locating this
Spin has been the best this year. Whether it's been like sweepers or curveball's been better as the years gone on, as the years like progressed. And I think the changeup has been really good this year. Whether it's swing and miss, whether it's like balls in play, they've been soft off the changeup. The cutter's come a long way. When I didn't really use it at the beginning. Now I'm trying to use it more, trying to impact it in the game plan and stuff. And it's actually like it's done well. Like, I've gotten some bad swings, I've gotten some bad contact, which is what you want to see. The only area that I really think is improvement is just location of fastball. It's like, can I get the zone early, and then can I get to where I normally miss, like off? And that's who I've always been, and I just haven't been able to do that quite yet, and that's where I'm trying to get back to.
What's cool is, like, I mean, I actually remember reading a story about this when he was in Double-A, like how he's so ahead of his time in terms of his feel for pitching, and he's always been advanced. But what's cool is now he's just like a 4-year veteran who knows exactly what he needs to do. It just works for him. And then one more thing I want to hone in on is you hear him talk about the innings that he's able to get deep into a game, even in a night where it's not his best. You look at the numbers. This season, he's pitched 6+ innings now 12 times. And if you take out April, he's only pitched fewer than 5 innings twice. Mm-hmm. So he's cut out the bad days, and he's turned the and days into solid quality starts. I'll end here. Like, I would have kept him in today, but it's fine. Like, I'm not here shouting about it. But he's in a good spot. He's probably been the least discussed Red this year because Burns is broken out, and then Stewart's broken out, and we talk about, and Lodolo has struggled in the blister, and then we talk about all the hitters not producing enough, and the bullpen's been in flux. And here's Abbott just cruising along, doing his thing, and that's valuable.
I was glad you guys brought up Brady Singer because, as you said, Abbott has, I think, always been on this path, but of being this type of pitcher. But what does Brady Singer do? Brady Singer takes the ball and Brady Singer makes starts. Brady Singer doesn't talk about anything. If there was something bothering him or something that didn't happen in the game, Brady Singer says, I wish I hadn't given up those walks. I wish I hadn't done this. Brady Singer takes the ball, makes starts, competes, gets innings. From the time that the Reds made the trade for him, we said, man, there's really value in Brady Singer. And as we talked about on the last show a little bit, it's good to have Brady Singer around the rest of that group. Chaz, on the chalkboard over the weekend, Charlie's chalkboard.
I've heard of it.
You've heard of it? I have. Yeah. I have as well. It's a valuable outlet for information on baseball and football. And I want to ask you about that sometime too. But right now we're going to do the baseball part. On the chalkboard over the weekend, there was a sentence you wrote, and you said, the Reds have so many questions. JJ Bleday has become one of the answers. That didn't just happen because he had his first career cycle in Arizona. That didn't just happen because he hit one more home run than he's hit at any other point in his career. How did JJ Bleday become one of the answers for the Cincinnati Reds in a difficult question-filled 2026 season?
So what I love about the fact that he hit for the cycle and then he set his career high in homers on the same night. Now he's a Red. Like, for years, JJ was the guy who was a top 5 pick who didn't pan out, who wasn't quite a journeyman, but he went from Miami to Oakland and technically to Sacramento, spent some time in Oakland's AAA or in the Athletics AAA. Last year, I think that's like Reno, or no, it's Vegas actually. Then went to Louisville, then went to Cincinnati. Like, for so long, he was defined by not being able to put it all together. And then this year, he put it all together. But to do that, to have a season that's now becoming as complete and as dense as it is, for it to be his best season, and getting the career high in homers is a reminder of that. And then now getting the highlight of his career, has the best season of his life and the best game of his life. Now he's just the Reds left fielder, or Reds right fielder, wherever he's playing that day, or Reds outfielder. Also fitting, or it also works too, because this, of course, happened after the deadline where teams wanted Bleday. Teams like Bleday. Yeah. He's got a couple more years of team control, and he's the guy who the Reds made a point to keep. I view it as the offers weren't quite there for Stevenson, for some of the relievers. They were kind of desperate with Singer with some of the innings they needed to get him through the season. And obviously, I guess they weren't blown away with him either. But with Bleday, they said, he's one of us. If you're looking at it from the Reds' perspective, he's one of the guys that's going to accelerate the team to where they're trying to get to, where they're not right now. But for him to have, and in some ways complete this type of season, because I guess whatever he does now is gravy. Like, he could hit 100 for the rest of the year and he'll still be a starting outfielder for the Reds in 2027, assuming we start on time. He did it. And it's like, for all the stuff that happened before, for the rest of his life now, like, the jersey and the ball that'll be on the center of the mantle, unless this changes with another big memory he has with the Reds over the next couple of years, it'll be the Reds jersey and the cycle ball.
Yeah.
And the Reds, from their perspective, look at Bleday as a guy written in Sharp in their plans for the future. And his big night on Saturday in Arizona, hitting for the cycle, was kind of it all coming together, and that story kind of really concluding in some way for what this 2026 season has been for him.
To me, the best thing you just said in all of that was he's a Red and he's one of the outfielders. Because as I said on a previous show, we're just begging to know, tell me who the left fielder is. Tell me who the right fielder is. You just want to know. Right now, there are so few players with this group that you can say that's, at least the shortstop. Okay. Sal's maybe the
it's
best
a short
hitter.
Game.
Yeah. What is he? What is Sal? Is he after
you've
this
got
year?
Sal and you've got Steer, and that's it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
now Bleday.
Right. But you don't know yet where Sal Stewart is going to play in the field beyond this year. Right now, the fit was first base, and it's been good. Maybe that's where he stays. Maybe he goes to third. You certainly don't know exactly where Spencer Steer is going to fit. He's part of the same conversation at first base. And if whether you're a fan or whether you're some of the highest ranking members of the Reds front office, just tell me who some of my guys are. Tell me who's going to play where and what they're going to do, and somebody that I can count on seeing and count on being there next season. So JJ Bleday enters that conversation. I love that part of it. Now, just like Andrew Abbott, something else his season is going to be known for is this is the season he bounced back and feels like he figured some things out. 2024 with the A's, he played 159 games. And as we said, he's already hit more home runs than he did that season. There's a pretty good chance that he could end this season with career highs in RBIs and walks as well in about 30 fewer games. And
if he doesn't, it's just because he didn't open the year on the roster.
Right. Didn't get here till the end of April. He's going to have about 30 fewer games. Now, he came in, what is it? In like a lion, player of the month in May. 8 of his 21 home runs came in the month of May. That was when he couldn't miss. Everything he hit, he just drilled, and a lot of those went over the fence at Great American Ballpark. But I think, and listening to him talk about it, you can tell that he figured out some things a little bit more about who he is a couple of years after that season with the A's in 2024. And I think you wrote this as well, and I agree with you. You know, the Reds have to find players like this who are change of scenery guys, and they found him. He chose them, and it's worked out, and the Reds need to hit on some players like that. And you don't hit on all of them, but it appears that they found something with JJ Bleday, and I look forward to seeing where it goes with Bleday. And you love guys who have a track record of, you know, won a national championship in college, played for one of the best programs in college baseball at Vanderbilt. I think he looks comfortable to be JJ Bleday in a Cincinnati Reds uniform, and that's a good thing for the Reds.
Here's something funny and like kind of the puts in perspective. And I hate to say something negative about Michael Toglia because he just dislocated his shoulder. But if you stack up the resumes next to each other in spring training, JJ Bleday versus Michael Toglia, they're basically identical. The difference was that Bleday was on a big league deal and Toglia was on a minor league deal. But of course, Bleday had options. He started the year in AAA. They were both first round picks, Bleday and Toglia. They were both guys who had
that
the potential, the flash of power, and then they each had awesome 2024 seasons.
Right.
And you can actually make the case that Toglia reached a higher high
in
2024 than Bleday did. Toglia came up and again, he got hurt. Hope him a speedy recovery. Toglia was a negative WAR player. Let's call him that. You know, it's the nicest way to say it. And Bleday is a guy who's going to ideally, and kind of the expectation is, be a starter for the Reds now for multiple years. So just another example of this being a success story for how much Bleday has grown. I think it's been a bad year for Reds hitting development at the big league level, but Bleday is a massive success. Like, plant your flag, put that at the top of your resume. Great job with his development, and he's just solid. I know he's had the hot and the cold, but he never gets too far away from his ability to crush a fastball. And that's just an elite skill, what he can do down the line against a fastball. And when you have just something like that you can fall back on, it's like having a steady run game you can always just turn to. And, you know, he did it. And this is kind of the memory that'll be cemented in our head of the year where JJ Bleday played his way into the Reds' plans.
Well, the Reds were in Arizona. Something else outside of the cycle game and the 450-foot moonshot that De La Cruz hit. Something else that came out of that trip was, I think we know now what most of us assumed, is that Spencer Steer won't play again this season. The decision about surgery on his wrist is still in the air, but we know he won't play again this season. And there's an old saying that you don't know what you've got until it's gone, which does not apply to Spencer Steer, because I think we all knew what the Reds had when he was playing. But now that he is not in the lineup, now that he's not an option for Terry Francona, what do we see in who some of the options have become? Michael Toglia, with Spencer Steer out. So since we can officially close the book on Steer's season, put Steer into context for me and what he means to this team.
On trade deadline of Palooza, we had a conversation about, or that was kind of before we knew the prognosis with Steer's injury. We talked about the idea of trading Spencer. And I think, and of course, theoretically on paper, anything could happen in the offseason. But I think what we've seen kind of shows Spencer was more important, and just the numbers were showing more important than he was getting credit for in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different areas. Like, I really went through it on Saturday. Not having Steer impacts every single position player on the roster. I'll go through it real quick. Ellie hasn't been able to have an off day because up until the Reds called up Ivan Johnson, who's been bad in the big leagues when he's played, the Reds haven't had a backup middle infielder. Sal Stewart can't play third now because they need a first baseman because Steer isn't available to play first. JJ Bleday has had to be in a much more prominent spot in the order against lefties, which, ideally that would be Steer. Stevenson is now having to DH more. The Reds are carrying 3 catchers now because their position player depth is kind of toasted. They're kind of out. And this is where they're at. Eugenio Suarez has had to back clean up a lot more. Ideally, that would be Steer, and Eugenio Suarez, or Steer over Suarez, and Eugenio Suarez has had to play a lot more third base, where he's really struggled because Stewart can't play third because Steer can't play first. Dan Myers has been hitting higher in the order. Matt McLean has been hitting 5th. He also can't get a day off because the Reds haven't had any middle infield depth. Hector Rodriguez is another guy who's now having to play more against lefties because the Reds don't have that, and Steer's an everyday player, but they don't have another right-handed hitting outfielder to help make that all work. While Suarez has been playing more third base, I think Hayes has also probably been playing more third base than you'd want to at this stat line right now because, say it with me, Stewart can't play third because no one else can play first. Tolia had to play the outfield for the first time all year in the big leagues, and he got hurt doing it. Now he's on the IL. With Banfield and Trevino, you go back to 3 catchers. TJ Friedel's playing more since Steer got hurt as he goes through a bad season. Ivan Johnson's here. When he's been up, he hasn't played, but the value of having him up is he can backfill you at a million other positions that the Reds don't really have an answer for right now. When you look at the bench as a whole, which is Friedel, Johnson, and the catchers, it's kind of the worst bench the Reds have had in my time covering the team. They haven't used Johnson. Friedel has been one of the worst hitters in baseball this season and doesn't really profile as a defensive replacement. And you've got 2 catchers, one of which Banfield, I don't mean to be rude, but and again, I'm intrigued by Will, and we'll talk about Will Banfield over the course of the rest of the season because just the athleticism and what he can do on the right swing, there's something there. I really believe there's something there. But when you have Banfield on the roster and then you're pinch hitting Jose Trevino for Will Banfield in the 8th in a series where Trevino's only caught once, what are we doing? That roster construction isn't ideal, isn't good, but I didn't have anyone else I'd rather bring up from AAA. You look at your top options in Louisville right now, guys like Noelvi Marte and Will Benson who couldn't cut it in the big leagues, Edwin Arroyo who couldn't cut it in the big leagues, Juan Brito and Michael Chavis, it's where you're at. I mean, that's your AAA depth. Everybody is being impacted, and Steer can't be everywhere, but he can be anywhere. And and he's also, I think, the best leader in the position player group. So they miss Spencer Steer, and how many more games would they have won? I don't know, but they sure are a different team that doesn't have nearly as many options available to it as Tito manages the game.
We usually look forward to September call-ups, just if for no other reason, the curiosity factor. Sometimes there's
thought of that.
Sometimes there's somebody there, like a Sal Stewart. Sometimes you're just curious because you think, okay, this will be the chance to finally see whoever we're talking about. Anybody? I mean, you don't have to make September call-ups.
That's mean.
No, I don't mean it mean, but you don't have to.
But that's true. They'll call up somebody. It would have been Johnson, just because again,
he can.
If McLean twists his ankle, he can just go in its second. That helps you feel safer at a lot of different positions. But I think Marte needs to be in AAA. I think Arroyo needs to be in AAA. Brito, from what I've read since the Reds have acquired him, has struggled defensively. So he's a contact-oriented, not an impact infielder. So, my favorite of the group's Chavis. You'd have to create a 40-man spot for him, but also, I guess he could play third with Sal at first, if that does anything for you, but it's where you're at. It's not I do think this is the worst bench, what they have right now, and they're not even that hurt. It's Tolia, who had just been called up, Dunn, who's been out for a while, and Steer. Those are your only position players who are hurt. And really what it is how guys on the opening day roster, Marte, Benson, guys who got called up like Arroyo, guys who you thought would be part of the solution, CE, not a part of the solution, but a part of your depth on the 40-man roster, like a Reese Hines or a CES. They obviously didn't work. So now you're here. What do they honestly, Francisco Urbaez, he'd be a guy I'd be interested just to see Yeah, much different than the debates they were having between Hector Rodriguez and Sal Stewart last year.
Yeah, glad you said that, because before we move on, a thought on Rodriguez. Had his first home run in Arizona, had a low moment when the ball slipped out of his hand in the outfield, trying to make the throw home. Again, it's
give
never
the
a straight
kid credit.
trajectory. What?
He's fighting. I give the
He's
kid
fighting.
credit. He's fighting.
Yeah.
He's grinding.
Yeah.
He's working. He stayed in there when he started his career in a slump. I really like how he approached it and kind of how he was thinking about it. And I've shared these quotes, but he's like, I'm actually excited because I know I'm going to hit. And what I'm showing is I can defend. Like, that was a really cool mindset that he had about it. The homer and then the double today, like, that's who Hector is. Like, very snappy, very punchy, like a really strong jab that he gets at the baseball. And I mean, we've talked about this too. I like how they were managing him. I like the theory of, if a young guy's struggling, put him in matchups where he can succeed and then expand from there. Now, the problem is, like, when he's not in there, you've got Friedel in against the lefty. Like, it's because of what the Reds bench is right now, but he can take a deep breath. He can just play. We'll all watch. We don't need to make any decisions. We'll see where Rodriguez is at by the end of the season and go from there.
I still agree with that. I still would like to see more of Rodriguez. I'd like to see more of Rodriguez. I'm gonna put the period at the end of
one more thing too, and I meant to mention. I'll take another thing after this. I meant to mention this earlier when I was talking about the AAA stuff. I mean, I went through the waiver wire today, and with the AAA situation being what it is, like, at this time of year after the trade deadline, and then as guys come back from injuries after they've been replaced at the trade deadline, like, you do see not intriguing, that's not the right word, but you do see guys who have been in the big leagues get DFA'd. So, like, I found a couple young ones, Nelson Velasquez, James Outman, kind of the same thought process that led to the Reds claiming Brito. Like, do you take a look? Do you give someone like that an opportunity? That's where you're at from a talent perspective anyway, when you have multiple guys getting playing time with an OPS that begins with a 4 or a 5. But they have the flexibility to take that shot. One more guy, speaking of, could we see him in September? He's a pitcher. Really happy for this guy, Carson Spires. So when I talked to Carson, I mean, I talked to him all the time in spring training. He had Tommy John last summer. Kind of something he said was, my goal is to make it out of the complex by the end of the season. And here he is, August 23rd, pitched, I think, 3 1/3 innings, about 66 pitches in Dayton today. So he's out. He's out of Arizona. Yeah. Clearly, he had gotten a lot of rehab work in Arizona because he's built up to that extent. Of course, you shouldn't rush him to the big leagues by any means. Let this guy who hasn't competed really since April of 2025 get some games under his belt. And you also don't want to have to option Carson Spires this year, because a part of the value that he brings to the table is kind of, he can be an up-down guy, a versatile back and forth bridge, AAA big league guy, like what he was in 2024, when he actually really helped that team, like, significantly. So don't burn an option this year, but is there a path where he gets built up, he's back, you call him up to be a long man to close out the season as a 26th or 27th man, 28th man type thing? Like, I mean, they gave a start to Kent Emanuel. I could totally see Carson Spires being a guy who we see before the end of the season, and credit to him for pushing back from not pushing back, but making it back quickly from Tommy John, and a guy who, I mean, again, he's been good when we've seen, not good, but he's exceeded everyone's expectations when we've seen him in the big leagues, and he's been a helpful piece on the depth chart.
I agree. Carson Spires fan, so hope he gets back. Last thing we're going to do just quickly is, baseball is the one game at a time, one inning at a time, one pitch at a time. You don't look ahead. But you're headed to San Francisco, where the Reds will play 3 days and then get an off day, which, everybody needs. And then for the final weekend of August, you get the Cubs in Wrigley Field. And then here's the stretch of the schedule that we've talked about forever. San Diego, Milwaukee, the Dodgers, Milwaukee, the Dodgers, the Cubs, the Braves. And if you want to just extend it out, you finish the season on the road against the Blue Jays. So, as you get on that flight to San Francisco, I know you have a list in your notebook, which we didn't even get specifically to the notebook today. I was too wrapped up in the conversation. But in Charlie's notebook, what are some of the topics you're looking for the rest of this road trip in San Francisco and Chicago? What do you want? What questions do you want to ask before you even see him play an inning in San Francisco?
I want to talk more with Bleday about where he's at, and I have an interesting idea that I hope to execute that I won't spoil here, but
don't spoil it. Don't
would
spoil
be fun. I want to catch up with TJ Friedel.
Yeah.
I want to get a better sense of, and I'll probably do this after his start on Monday, kind of the next day, like Chase Burns, how are you doing? Like, not even physically, not even how's the arm, like how is the grind?
Right.
And what's that been like? And then I really want to check in with Tito. Because, and I promise he said this. I've been trying to find the quote and I can't, but I promise he said this over the years. He said, like, man, the worst feeling is when it's August and you're out of it and you want to win, but it's not coming together. And that's where the Reds are. And Tito hasn't experienced this much in his career.
Yeah.
What are the things that kind of, not that he needs to be kept going, but keep him going? Like, what are the things that creates that sort of edge and excitement and anticipation and winning mentality when it's a season that hasn't taken on that identity? And I think what I'm going to hear from, when I ask him these questions is kind of the buy-in and belief and investment that he has in this group specifically. And I know that's a cliche, but I think there's I think Tito feels very strongly about this group. More than you would expect. Like, I know that's weird to say because he's the manager. But I think that's the case, just being around this team. And so I want to talk to him more directly about that. That's something that's definitely on my list that maybe we'll hear clips of on Power Stacks.
Listen, I look forward to everything you said, but specifically, I'm glad you brought that up about Tito because it is different. So I look forward to seeing how that plays out. Chaz, enjoy the West Coast. Enjoy the ballpark. It's one of my top 2 or 3. I love it. And I look forward to reading on Charlie's chalkboard and following along, not only on Twitter, which you do well, but right here on Power Stacks, everything that happens on the rest of this road trip as the Reds wrap up the month of August and then get back to Great American Ballpark for a killer September schedule. Chaz, enjoy. We'll see you next time right here on Power Stacks.